Good evening, you're watching the main news on ATV. I'm Heyling Chan.
And I'm Brittyn Clennett. Here are tonight's top stories.
Avian flu strain infects humans for first time, killing 2 people in Shanghai.
Emily Lau hits out after Maria Tam says universal suffrage doesn't mean right to contest elections.
Operations at Kwai Chung Container Terminal affected as more workers join strike to demand pay rise. 2 people have died in Shanghai after being infected with a strain of avian flu that's not been transmitted to humans before.
A third person is fighting for her life in nearby Anhui province after contracting the H7N9 flu virus. China's National Health and Family Planning Commission had gloomy news today. It said 2 people died and another is in critical condition after contracting an avian flu virus, H7N9, which had not infected humans previously. An 87-year-old man died in Shanghai 2 weeks after becoming ill on the 19th of February. A 27-year-old Shanghai butcher contracted the virus on the 27th of February and died 11 days later. And a 35-year-old woman in nearby Anhui province who had contact with poultry is in critical condition. All 3 had fever and cough before developing severe pneumonia and breathing difficulties later. It is not known how they were infected. The official Xinhua news agency tried to allay fears by saying the virus does not seem to be contagious, as 88 people who had close contact with the victims have had no symptoms so far. The Centre for Health Protection in Hong Kong has been notified of the cases and says it'll be liaising with its mainland counterparts. This is the first time that the H7N9 virus has infected humans and no vaccines are currently available. Basic Law Committee member Maria Tam has come under fire from Pan-Democrats after saying universal suffrage does not include the right to stand in an election or to nominate candidates.
She argued that Hong Kong does not need to follow the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, but Pan-Democrats insist that the document is listed in the Basic Law and the city must abide by it. ATV's Emily Sue reports.
Growing concerns that Pan-Democrats may be screened out of the next chief executive election in 2017 have taken another twist. Basic Law Committee member Maria Tam said today that universal suffrage only means universal and equal voting rights. It does not mean the right to stand in an election or to nominate candidates, she declared. Lam said China's constitution applies to Hong Kong as the city is under the direct jurisdiction of Beijing. Since the constitution states clearly that the country is led by the Communist Party, anyone who challenges the rule of the party or antagonizes Beijing cannot qualify to become Hong Kong's top leader. Article 25B of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights says every citizen should have the right and the opportunity to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, which shall be by universal or equal suffrage. Beijing has promised that the 2017 chief executive election will be a one-person, one-vote basis. But Tam says the universal suffrage pledge was based on the Basic Law and not the Covenant. Tam said when the colonial British administration signed the covenant, it had reservations on Article 25B and decided that it was not suitable for Hong Kong. When China regained sovereignty over the city in 1997, Beijing agreed that only articles in the covenant that are suitable to Hong Kong would remain in force. The government confirmed Tam's remarks in response to an ATV inquiry this afternoon. Just recently, the United Nations Human Rights Committee, in a report on Hong Kong, expressed concern about the lack of a clear plan to institute universal suffrage and to ensure the right of all persons to vote and to stand for election without unreasonable limitations. Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau attended the UN hearing in Geneva when the Hong Kong government was called to give an account earlier this month. She said the UN had asked the SAR to drop the reservation on Article 25B since the beginning. The lawmaker also criticized Tam's statements.
Well, I think she sounds quite ignorant. They said that once a place starts having election, then the reservation should just fall away. And the committee has urged the Hong Kong government to withdraw the reservation for many years. And in fact, during the recent hearing in Geneva, they made the same request, and the government said they would not withdraw the reservation.
One of the organizers behind the Occupy Central movement that is pressing for genuine democracy, Chu Yuming, agrees with Lau. He argued that Article 39 of the Basic Law does not mention Article 25B of the Covenant specifically, but that the entire document is applicable to and binding on Hong Kong. Executive Council convener Lam Woon Kwang said the Covenant should only be used as a reference. When it comes to Hong Kong's political reform, the city should follow local laws and its mini-constitution. Fears that pro-democratic candidates will be screened out of the 2017 chief executive election arose last weekend when MPC Law Committee Chairman Chow Xiaoyang said those who oppose Beijing should not aspire to become the city's top leader. Emily Su, ATV News.
Pro-establishment lawmaker Priscilla Leung has warned that there could be chaos if the Occupy Central movement blocks streets in the business district next year.
The movement has said that its campaign for true democracy will be peaceful, but Leung slammed the group and other pan-democrats for being selfish. Here's Emily Su.
Professional Forum legislator Priscilla Leung has warned that the Occupy Central campaign may lead to chaos if protesters block the streets of the business district in July next year to press for true democracy. In letter to Hong Kong on government radio, Leung said civil disobedience is not an acceptable option for successful negotiations.
The so-called Occupy Central action may result in chaos, which the advocates cannot say they don't foresee. Subject to previous experience in Hong Kong when hot-tempered demonstrators and angry public upset by the action confront.
Leung claimed that the organizers are trying to achieve their own political goals at the public's expense.
We respect freedom of expression, but not at the expense of others, especially to sacrifice the normal operation of business. These advocates claim that they only sacrifice themselves, but the fact and reality is surely vice versa.
Occupy Central leader Benny Tai, a Hong Kong University law lecturer, has said that taking over the streets of Central would only be a last resort if the government's proposals for political reforms do not meet international standards. He also stressed that the movement will conduct a peaceful civil disobedience campaign to press for genuine universal suffrage. But Leung accused pan-democrats of trying to force their vision of democracy on the rest of society, saying nothing will be resolved if they stick to the one and only model. Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau hit back.
What we're advocating is something that is peaceful and orderly, and many people have expressed their views, saying it's a very good idea to fight for universal suffrage. And only those who want to will take part. And I certainly hope that people like Ms. Priscilla Leung will not issue such inflammatory statements.
In their radio program, Leung said all parties must make compromises to ensure the success of negotiations over political reform. Emily Su, ATV News.
More dockers at the Kwai Chung container terminal have joined a strike to demand higher pay.
The work stoppage at one of the world's busiest container ports is now in its 4th day, and the terminal operator is seeking an injunction to stop protesters blocking roads. ATV's Bolong reports.
200 dockers downed tools when the strike began on Thursday, but the number surged to 450 today, the 4th day of the stoppage at the Kwai Chung container terminal. Workers and their supporters continue to protest at Pier 6, demanding a hefty wage increase. More than 100 people camped overnight to press for a 17% pay rise after rejecting the 5% they were offered. Hong Kong International Terminals, which operates the port, today began checking the identity of those entering the site. The company said it wanted to ensure the safety of people in the port. HIT is a subsidiary of Hutchison Whampoa, headed by Hong Kong's richest man, Li Ka-shing.
We're asking for a dialogue with all the subtractor companies and Hutchison because all the workers are fighting for the collective bargaining.
HIT is seeking a court injunction to stop the strikers from blocking roads at the site and is discussing the issue with its lawyers. The terminal operator insists that the pay dispute is out of its hands and is a matter to be sorted out between the various contractors it hires and their employees. The strikers have complained that the 5% they were offered isn't enough to keep pace with inflation, adding that they've only received one pay increase in the past 15 years. Yesterday, around 100 people returned to work after one contractor promised to raise their wages by 20% over 2 years. HIT Managing Director Jerry Yim admitted today that operations at the terminal have been affected. He warned that if the industrial action continues, the image of Hong Kong's shipping industry will be damaged. Yim added he has met HIT contractors for talks over the dispute. He noted that more dockers have joined the strike, but said it cannot stop workers from walking off the jobs. Unionists say a protest march will be held tomorrow from Savon Playground in Wan Chai to government headquarters at Tamar. Bo Leung, ATV News.
A group campaigning for a universal pension scheme has urged the government to give the elderly an extra basic allowance to help them pay for living expenses.
Members say the money for the handouts could come from the government's huge financial surplus or by imposing an extra tax on companies that make large profits. Bo Leung reports.
Hong Kong's population is ageing rapidly, giving rise to concerns that the city's welfare system would soon be unable to cope with the demand for services. The Alliance for Universal Pension estimates that there are currently 980,000 people in Hong Kong aged 65 and above. It called on the government to provide these senior citizens $3,000 a month as a basic allowance, on top of other benefits which many elderly people already receive. During a radio show, Alliance spokeswoman Lai Yun-mei suggested that the government could finance the handouts by transferring $50 billion from its huge financial surplus to a special fund. Another possibility, Lai said, is to set aside 5% from the mandatory provident fund to pay for the basic allowance. She also suggested that companies which make a profit of more than $10 million a year should be taxed an extra 1.9%, and the money could be diverted to the pension fund. The Alliance said it based its calculation on population growth projections and believes the basic allowance should be paid until 2039. It also urged the government to set up a committee to implement a universal pension scheme, saying this will benefit society. The group plans to meet Chief Secretary Carrie Lam to discuss a pension scheme. Bo Leung, ATV News.
Overseas, Pope Francis has delivered a plea for peace in his first Easter Sunday message as head of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics.
He called for peace in the world's most troubled regions, including Asia, Africa and the Middle East. St. Peter's Square was packed today as Catholics flocked to the Vatican to celebrate the most important day on the Christian calendar. Since being elected earlier this month, Pope Francis has made it clear that he's not one for tradition. Dressed in white robes instead of the more elaborate ones his predecessor wore, the pontiff addressed a sea of worshippers before leaving the square on his Pope-mobile. Then from the papal balcony, Francis delivered his first Easter Sunday message to Rome and the world. He started with a simple Happy Easter before making a passionate call for world peace. The Pope used his speech to call for peace in the world's most troubled regions, including Asia, Africa and the Middle East, and singled out Syria, where civil war has raged for 2 years. Francis urged Israelis and Palestinians to put aside their differences and negotiate a peace agreement to end their conflict, and called for an end to violence in Iraq. He also said that the world is still divided by greed and wounded by selfishness, which threatens human life and the family. Celebrating the Christian belief in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, Francis has started his papacy by stressing humility. He surprised clerics by eating in a communal dining room with other priests and shunning the grand papal apartments by staying at the Vatican guest house where he's been since before his election. Still to come on ATV's main news tonight, Argentine superstar sets new record by scoring against all La Liga clubs in consecutive matches.
Mainlanders hail First Lady Peng Liyuan as fashion icon, with her clothing choices followed closely.
Nothing could have given them more joy than living peacefully in the jungle with each other. But the moment Johnny and his partners set foot on this uncharted land, everything is destined to change. ATV World Spectacular, Mighty Peking Man, tonight at 9. Singing sensation Francis Yip teamed up with the Hong Kong Philharmonic Orchestra to give you the most unforgettable performance ever. So many classic Cantonese pop songs that will once again melt your heart. Enjoy the special holiday with HKPO and Francis Yip, Diva, Wednesday night at 9.
Stay close to fresh K-pop from the hottest selling artists to the up-and-coming superstars. Keep in touch with the latest chart of the Korean pop music scene on Samsung Digital Special. Pops in Seoul, Thursday at 6:25 p.m.
Every day we learn. From him, from her, from someone we barely know. But what does it mean to you and me? Find out the answers on Global 3000, Thursday night at 8.
The Old Age Living Allowance has 3 phases for application. Now is the second phase, postal submission. Elderly persons who did not receive notice during the first phase and are receiving the Old Age Allowance, or aged 65 or above and receiving the Normal Disability Allowance, should receive yellow notification letters issued on March 25 by the Social Welfare Department. For details, please call 3595 0130.
In other world news, hundreds of people treated by dentists in the US have had their blood tested to see if they've been infected with HIV.
But we begin our world wrap in Afghanistan, where a child has been killed in a NATO airstrike. Police in Afghanistan's eastern province of Ghazni inspected the wreckage of vehicles destroyed in a NATO helicopter airstrike. Government officials say a child and 9 Taliban militants were killed. The death of the child is expected to renew condemnation of NATO for launching airstrikes in which civilians are killed. The latest incident came as President Hamid Karzai began a 2-day visit to Qatar. The Taliban is expected to open office in the Gulf state as the first step towards possible peace talks between the rebels and the Afghan government. Up to 200 patients of a dentist in the US state of Oklahoma have queued up for blood tests. This came after another patient was diagnosed with hepatitis C and HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. The blood tests were ordered after officials who checked the dentist's clinic found that sterilisation procedures for surgical equipment were not conducted properly.
I'm really scared because I feel like, that's my fiance right there. So if anything happens, and it's not good news, then he's going to have to be tested.
The dentist, who has surrendered his licence, is cooperating with authorities. The trial of 6 men charged with raping a Swiss woman has opened in central India. The suspects are accused of sexually assaulting the victim while she and her husband were camping in a forest in the state of Madhya Pradesh. The Swiss couple have left the country but may have to return to India to give evidence. It was the latest widely publicised attack since a medical student died after being gang raped and beaten on a bus in the capital, New Delhi, in December. 11 people have been injured in a 50-vehicle pile-up on a motorway in southwestern Switzerland. Low visibility caused by fog and speeding may have led to the chain collision, according to officials. The victims were sent to hospital with minor injuries.
It's time for sports with Raymond Yang.
And yet another record for Lionel Messi.
Well, indeed, he's now scored in 19 straight La Liga matches. By doing so, the Argentine superstar has become the first person to score against every club in Spain's top division in consecutive matches.
Spanish league leaders Barcelona were away to Celta Vigo, who scored first through Naso Insa in the 38th minute. But the lead lasted only 5 minutes. Once again, Barcelona had Lionel Messi to thank for. He set up the equalizer, which was converted by Christian Tello. Tello returned the compliment in the 73rd minute, enabling the World Player of the Year to put Barcelona ahead. That goal rewrote the record books, and it was the 19th consecutive La Liga match in which Messi found the target, scoring a total of 43 goals in those games. But the Argentines' latest record wasn't enough to hand victory to Barcelona. With time running out, Celta equalized when Boya Obina's header found the net in the 88th minute. Despite the 2-2 draw, Barcelona had the table, 13 points clear of Real Madrid, who were held 1-1 at Real Zaragoza. In Germany, runaway league leaders Bayern Munich have continued their impressive run by thumping Hamburg at home. Despite leading 5-0 at halftime, Bayern continued pressing after the break and were rewarded when Claudio Pizarro's third goal of the match made it 6-0. Arjen Robben made it 7-0 a minute later. Then Pizarro was on target again for his fourth goal of the day. Jeffrey Bruma pulled one back for the visitors, but Frank Ribery replied shortly after, keeping Bayern firmly in front. Heiko Westermann gave Hamburg another consolation goal late in the match, but Bayern's 9-2 victory puts them 20 points ahead of second-place Borussia Dortmund.
In tennis, Serena Williams has defeated Maria Sharapova to win the Miami Masters for a record-equaling 6th time.
World number 1 Serena Williams and second-ranked Maria Sharapova battled it out for the Miami Masters trophy in Florida. Russian Sharapova was on fiery form at the start, taking advantage of some hard-hitting but careless shots by her American opponent to win the opening set 6-4. Williams collected herself by the second set and refused to let go of the steering wheel to close it out 6-3. The American carried the momentum into the decider, winning 6-love to clinch the Miami crown for a record equaling 6th time and become the 4th woman to achieve the feat. The triumph is particularly special to Williams because her family home is nearby.
It's great. It's great being able to win here. I've been most of my life here. I'm driving home today after this. I'm just going to go home and sleep in my bed and just relax. So it's definitely something that I really am happy about.
It's the 5th time Sharapova has reached the final in Miami, and the 5th one she's lost.
You know, the way that I played in the set and a half, I think I need to be able to keep that level for 3 sets and whatever it takes and not have those letdowns. It's really important.
Williams is the first top seed to lift the trophy in Miami since she was champion back in 2004.
Also in sports, a Hong Kong horse has finished second in the world's richest race, while the Dallas Mavericks have beaten the Chicago Bulls in the NBA.
The world's richest horse race has been run in Dubai. It was a tight contest, but US-owned Animal Kingdom took the lead on the final bend. Written by Joel Rosario, Animal Kingdom stayed in front to clinch the $10 million prize. In second place was Hong Kong-bred horse Red Cadieux, owned by former Jockey Club chairman Ronald Ackley. The Dallas Mavericks have Dirk Nowitzki to thank for pulling them through a neck-and-neck game against the Chicago Bulls. The German shot a three-pointer with just seconds remaining on the clock to hand the Mavericks a 198 win. Jimmy Butler and Nate Robinson are among the Bulls players who missed clear chances that could have won the game.
China's First Lady, Peng Liyuan, has become the new it girl, with fashion bloggers following her every move and clothing choices since her husband's maiden foreign tour as president.
The website of the Chinese label from which she buys her clothes has crashed because of high demand in a phenomenon reminiscent of the Kate Middleton or Michelle Obama effect. This was the video broadcast all over the world that sparked a frenzy for clothes worn by the wife of Xi Jinping as she stepped off a plane in the Russian capital Moscow on his first foreign tour as president. Peng Liyuan's black trench coat became China's most sought-after item, all because of that single moment. From that point on, there was no turning back. Fashion bloggers are obsessed with everything she wears, and mainland internet users are scrambling to get their hands on the latest copycat clothes, bags and shoes they can find. For the Guangzhou-based label that made Peng's clothes, it's completely transformed the business. Exception is now at the top of China's fashion world, and this branch in Beijing hasn't had a quiet day since. This woman has come to see if new items are in stock because she wants to dress like the First Lady. And this woman loves Peng's clothes, describing them as young and vibrant. Exception has released a statement saying the First Lady's clothes are tailor-made and not for sale, but that hasn't stopped internet users from crashing its website. China's new fashion awakening is exactly what happened to Britain with a Kate Middleton effect, and the US with a Michelle Obama effect. Arguably, Peng has long been famous in her own right as a singer, but she's now got a far greater role to play. Not only is she an ambassador for homegrown fashion on the international stage, her presence in the public eye means that Beijing is opening up to the use of soft power. Unlike her predecessors, Peng is often seen on television, not only on her husband's arm, but also changing the world's image of China as a rising global power. She visited a boarding school for orphans in Moscow and a women's foundation in Tanzania. The central government's now well aware of the effectiveness of public diplomacy, and it's never looked so good.
A look at the weather before we leave you. It was cloudy today with few rain patches. Temperatures ranged from 19 to 21 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 91 and 99%. Winds were moderate easterlies, occasionally fresh offshore. Looking at the ultraviolet reading, the maximum recorded for the day was 3. Tomorrow's UV index will be around 4. Let's take a look at the weather in the region. The northeast monsoon persists over the coast of southeastern China. Meanwhile, rain is affecting Guangdong's coast and the adjacent waters. And moving on to the satellite images. A broad cloud band is covering South China's coastal region. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Cloudy with a few rain patches tomorrow, Easter Monday. Temperatures will range from 19 to 22 degrees. Similar conditions on Tuesday with the mercury hitting a high of 22 degrees again, remaining cloudy with showers for the rest of the week. Now for tomorrow's air pollution levels. General stations will be low to high at 20 to 55. Roadside pollution levels will be high at 60 to 85. Finally, the weather in other cities around the world.
That's the main news for Easter Sunday. I'll be back with an update in an hour. I'm Heyling Chan.
I'm Raymond Young.
And I'm Brittyn Clennett. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, Newsline.
Nothing could have given them more joy than living peacefully in the jungle with each other. But the moment Johnny and his partners set foot on this uncharted land, everything is destined to change. ATV World Spectacular Mighty Peking Man, tonight at 9.
What happens out there is real. Get the latest European news and current affairs. Whatever happens, when it happens, you're always the first to know. Check in current news. European Journal, every Monday night at 8. Current events. Controversial issues. In-depth accounts of the latest news and happenings that impact us all. Get to the heart of the matter. Get real with Inside Story, Tuesday night at 6:55.
Anyone who attempts to give culture a definition is destined to fail. They will tell you anything is possible. Documentary World, Culture X, Tuesday and Friday night at 9. Tibet's relationship with the central government is getting trickier.